Welcoming the Prime Minister of Canada, His Excellency Stephen Harper. I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs. Voilà plus de 65 ans que les nations du monde, épuisées, certaines dévastées, par des années de guerre, créent l'Organisation des Nations Unies. Le Canada était l'une d'elles, l'une des nombreuses en fait, dont l'expérience nouvelle du conflit avait persuadé son peuple que la possibilité d'un monde meilleur, celui dans lequel les nations régleraient pacifiquement leurs différends, était un objectif digne de tous leurs efforts. La population canadienne continue aujourd'hui de croire en cet objectif et elle continuera de s'efforcer de vivre selon les principes qui le rendent possible. Such principles are enshrined in the charter of this organization, that same UN charter endorsed with happiness and hope by a former Canadian government on that auspicious June day in San Francisco in 1945. These foundational beliefs recognize the sovereign equality of countries. They remind us of the obligation to settle disputes peacefully, and they demand we seek justice and uphold the human rights of all people. These are values that Canadians hold dear, and as the universal membership of this body implies, so do peoples the world over. This widespread consensus continues to convince the idealist in all of us that so much more is possible in this world of ours. At the same time, it makes the gap between aspiration and achievement so disappointing. It calls us onward to do more, as successive Canadian governments have worked diligently to do for almost a lifetime. These ideals, as well as an acute awareness of the broad concerns of the international community, especially those of developing countries, continue to animate the Government of Canada, the government that I lead today. Et ces idéaux ont le soutien enthousiaste de la population canadienne. Et je ne vois pas le jour où les motifs que nous amèneraient à interrompre nos efforts en ce sens. Comme toujours, la question qui se pose est de savoir comment procéder. Notre préférence va à l'action utile, une action qui donne des résultats concrets, une action qui aide les populations dans leur lutte contre l'oppression, les catastrophes et la pauvreté. Let me just run through some of those actions. As a founding member of the UN and its seventh largest contributor to its finances, Canada has been a consistently reliable and responsible participant in UN initiatives around the world. This was so in the earliest days of the United Nations. It was so during the difficult days of the Cold War, of decolonization, and of the struggle against apartheid, and it remains so today. Canada continues to pay, for instance, a heavy price to fulfill our UN obligation to support the lawful government of Afghanistan. We pay it with the resources of the Canadian taxpayers, but more profoundly, with the sorrow in the priceless lives of our young men and women who serve there in the Canadian forces, as well as, sadly, civilians who have also given their sweat and their lives in the service of both our country and the people of Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, our military efforts have gone hand in hand with our reconstruction and development programs. In particular, Canada supports those, such as the Dalla Dam, which will have enduring economic benefit. Et nous avons aussi largement investi, et nous continuerons de la faire, dans d'autres programmes qui permettent d'améliorer la vie des citoyens les plus vulnérables de ce pays. Notre engagement international ne se limite certainement pas à l'Afghanistan. En fait, nous déployons nos efforts ailleurs dans le monde. Nous nous engageons à doubler notre aide à l'Afrique de sorte que le Canada est un leader au sein du G8 pour ce qui est de remplir cet engagement. And we are on track to double our overall development assistance by March of next year. Furthermore, we have untied food aid, and all Canadian aid will be untied by 2013. Such measures significantly extend the purchasing power of Canadian aid funds. Canada was also among the first last year at L'Aquila to double support for agricultural development. During the economic crisis as well, we have acted in concert with G20 partners to increase the lending capacity of development organizations like the Inter-American Development Bank and the African Development Bank. In particular, we have made a significant contribution to peace and security in Africa, including to peace initiatives, humanitarian assistance, and reconstruction in Sudan since taking office in January 2006. Le Canada s'est également servi de son leadership pour rétablir la paix en Sierra Leone. Nous trouvons encourageant aussi la reprise des pourparlers directs entre l'Israël et l'autorité palestinienne. Le Canada espère sincèrement que les pourparlers aboutiront et le Canada continuera d'aider l'autorité palestinienne à bâtir ses institutions. Et comme vous le savez tous, nous nous sommes très largement engagés en Haïti, à la fois avant et depuis le terrible tremblement de terre qui a frappé le pays cette année. Le Canada a été l'une des premières nations à fournir sous diverses formes des secours concrets. Et nous avons pris l'engagement à long terme d'aider le peuple d'Haïti à reconstruire son pays gravement endommagé. Tout dernièrement, le Pakistan a fait face à des inondations dévastatrices. Le Canada a de nouveau réagi rapidement. Toutes ces actions tirent leur origine des idéaux canadiens. Permettez-moi donc de dire une chose. Cette Assemblée devrait savoir que le Canada est éligible au Conseil de sécurité. Et si nous sommes élus, nous serons prêts à servir. And if called upon to serve on the Security Council, Canada will be informed by these ideals and strive to further them just as we have striven to implement Security Council resolutions. I should also mention Canada's role this year as chair of the G8 and host of the most recent meeting of the G20. We've tried to ensure that these gatherings serve the broader interests of the entire global community. In preparation for the G20, we conducted wide-ranging outreach sessions, including with the Secretaries General of the Commonwealth, the Francophonie, and of course, this organization. We used our chairmanship of the G8 to reach out to leaders from Africa and the Americas and to secure an agreement to enact the Muskoka Initiative for maternal, newborn, and child health. De tels progrès sont littéralement essentiels pour atteindre les objectifs les plus réalisables du millénaire de l'ONU pour le développement, à savoir réduire l'effroyable mortalité chez les mères et les enfants des pays en développement. Nous nous employons à mobiliser les nations donatrices et les fondations privées. Ensemble, nous devrions recueillir plus de 10 milliards de dollars sur 5 ans. Cela contribuera d'une manière importante à la stratégie globale du secrétaire général pour la santé des mères et des enfants. De même, nous avons annoncé ici, il y a 2 jours, que les contribuables canadiens procéderont à une reconstitution renforcée du Fonds mondial de lutte contre le sida, la tuberculose et le paludisme. We did these things for one simple reason, to alleviate the suffering and indeed save the lives of people all over the world who are among the millions afflicted with these grave and debilitating diseases. Actions such as these are a moral imperative. It is essential that we strive to make a significant actual difference in the lives of the world's most disadvantaged people, who, seeing his neighbor distressed, will pass by on the other side of the road. That is why we have also used our chairmanship of the G8 to further the essential ethic of accountability. We published the first accountability report to ensure that as donor countries, we fulfill the pledges that we make. Our words must be translated into action, and we must make a real difference to those who need our help. And to that end, as many of you also know, Canadian taxpayers have forgiven debts totaling $1 billion owed by the world's poorest countries. However, let us not limit our horizons by looking just at the least we can do. Much higher goals are within our capacity if we will but reach for them. In the short time that I have with you today, there is one thought above all others that I wish to share with you. C'est l'impérieuse nécessité pour l'ensemble des États du monde en ce 21e siècle d'adopter une vue éclairée de la souveraineté. Comme je l'ai déjà dit, le respect de la souveraineté est un principe fondamental de l'Organisation des Nations Unies. Toutefois, la récession mondiale des 2 dernières années nous a appris, espérons-le, une douloureuse leçon. Elle nous a brutalement rappelé que dans ce monde qui se rétrécit, nous voyageons tous dans un même bateau et pas en solitaire, et que la façon dont nous voyageons ensemble importe beaucoup, parce que nos intérêts sont tous reliés entre eux, des changements climatiques aux menaces sanitaires et aux pandémies en passant bien sûr par l'économie. For example, nations that do not consider the effects of their economic choices on others may not only hurt their trading partners, but themselves as well. Those who succumb to the lure of protectionism soon find that trading partners denied a market also lack the means to be a customer. To recognize that is to understand the need for enlightened sovereignty, the idea that what's good for others